Today, we're going to talk about a man whose story is just, well, it's so wild, it sounds like something out of a movie. A man who fought for 3 different armies in 3 different wars.
All right, picture this. It's 1965. You're in a helicopter cutting through a monsoon over Vietnam. Sitting with you is this 46-year-old Green Beret major, a guy named Larry Thorne. And to you and all the other young GIs, he's basically a living legend. But here's the thing. Nobody really knew the full story. The truth about his past? It was a total mystery.
And there's a good reason for that. See, Larry Thorne, that wasn't even his real name. He was an American, and his journey from the frozen forests of Finland all the way to the jungles of Vietnam, it's honestly one of the most incredible stories you'll ever hear in military history.
So to really get who this guy was, we have to go way back, all the way back to 1919. He was born in Finland, and his name was Lauri Törni. And both his life and really the entire world were about to get turned upside down by the storm of war that was brewing.
His military career was really forged in the absolute furnace of the Winter War. I mean, you had this tiny Finnish army, just massively outnumbered, fighting this terrifying guerrilla war on skis against the invading Soviet Red Army. It was a brutal, brutal conflict. And this is where Törni became an absolute tactical genius. He totally mastered this thing called the Modi tactic. Basically, these small Finnish ski units would just sneak up, ambush, and cut off these huge Soviet columns. Then they'd just pick them apart. Törni himself became a legend for it. He was known for this almost supernatural calm and, this cold surgical precision in a fight. He got so good at it, so devastatingly effective, that the Soviets actually put a 3 million mark bounty on his head. Just think about that. He was the only Finnish soldier to ever get that kind of, well, you could call it a fearsome honor from the enemy. So here's the turning point. When the war was over, Finland had to give up a chunk of its territory, and that included Törni's hometown. And that loss, that was personal. It created this deep, unhealing wound, a vendetta against the Soviet Union that would basically drive every single thing he did for the rest of his life.
Okay, so let's get into the next chapter of his life, because this intense personal vendetta, it's about to lead him down a really dark and controversial path, to an alliance that, frankly, a lot of people would find completely unforgivable.
So the fighting starts up again in what's called the Continuation War. And what does Törni do? He forms his own elite unit, Detachment Törni. And this unit becomes legendary. We're talking daring raids deep behind Soviet lines. They were so good that his men just worshipped him. In fact, one of his men would later become the president of Finland. That's how loyal they were.
But then, Finland signs an armistice with the Soviets. And Törni, he feels totally betrayed. He's convinced the fight isn't over, so he makes this fateful choice. He joins the German Waffen-SS, right in the last chaotic days of World War II. And it's really important to understand this. It wasn't about Nazi ideology for him. It was about continuing his personal war against the Soviets, and he was going to do it by any means necessary.
So the war ends, but Törni is no longer a hero back home. Far from it. When he goes back to Finland, he's immediately arrested and charged with treason for fighting with the Germans. His life back in Finland just becomes this crazy cycle of getting thrown in prison and then escaping. He's a total pariah, stripped of his rank. He knew there was no future for him there. He had to get out if he wanted to keep being the only thing he knew how to be, a soldier. And the way he did it, it just shows you his sheer force of will. I mean, it's an unbelievable odyssey. He escapes, gets on a cargo ship, and then he literally jumps overboard into the Gulf of Mexico, swims to the shore of Alabama. He arrives in America as an undocumented immigrant with, absolutely nothing. So what does he do? He changes his name to Larry Thorne. And at 35 years old, he enlists as a private in the US Army. You can imagine it didn't take them long to figure out that this middle-aged recruit was actually one of the most seasoned and brilliant combat veterans on the planet. He was immediately fast-tracked into the brand new Special Forces, the Green Berets. And just like that, as an American Green Beret, his legend is reborn, and it only gets bigger. And that all leads to his deployment to the one place that would define his final chapter, Southeast Asia. Yeah, the sweltering jungle of Vietnam was a whole world away from the snows of Finland. But for Thorne, one thing was the same. The enemy was backed by his old nemesis, the Soviet Union. So for him, this wasn't some new war. It was the exact same fight he'd been in his entire life. And he fought with that same legendary ferocity. He was leading these top-secret Black Ops missions for a really clandestine unit called Makiv Sog, always leading from the front, just like he always did. Until one day, October 18th, 1965, when his command helicopter just vanished into a monsoon storm right over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And for more than 30 years, he was just a ghost. His fate was a mystery, the kind of thing that fueled all sorts of military folklore and legends. But then, in 1999, his crash site was finally found. After all that time, the soldier had come home. In 2003, he was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. And his impossibly complex legacy is kind of summed up by this one single astounding fact. It just goes to show you this was a life that you really can't put in a neat little box. So, when you think about it all, what's the takeaway? Was he a soldier of 3 different flags, or did he really only ever belong to one nation? A nation with no borders, no politics, and definitely no peace. The nation of war itself. It's something to think about, isn't it?
Please like and subscribe.